Hi, this is video number 3 in a series of videos that talk about how to set up a business importing, selling, and constructing greenhouses. This video is going to focus on the process of importing goods from China specifically, although it would be applicable to other nations. I explained previously that there are tremendous financial benefits to import. You just can't compete in terms of manufacturing with other countries. It's very expensive to have commodity level products produced in the United States. So first thing is to understand the difference between CIF and FOB. Freight on board is what FOB stands for. CIF is cost, insurance, and freight. When you're importing or even getting a quote, typically, it's going to be an FOB for the most part. The big boys like Walmart and Harbor Freight, they're going to handle their own shipping. They have their own networks, things like that. For the small mom and pops like you and me, it's actually financially better to run CIF. And what that means is when we, specifically with polyvalley.com, Evan Wu, the president specifically, he's going to have better quotes for shipping than you're going to find domestically. So, and I'll explain cargo brokers, things like that, or even shipping brokers. They're individuals that basically are set up to help import stuff. If you go through one of those organizations domestically in the U.S., you're going to end up paying a lot more. The quotes for shipping from China with CIF, they're always about 20% lower or more. So I just go that way. I've actually looked. In fact, one of two of my nephews actually do have a shipping company out in Portland, and I've talked to them, gotten quotes from them. I've gotten quotes from other people, including Cargo Link. That's what I formerly used as my cargo broker. I'm currently with another one, and I'll explain that as well. But overall, it just always ends up a lot cheaper if I don't tack on their fairly sizable profit margins. So go with CIF. I'd recommend, at least for these purchases, for the greenhouse kits that we've set up here, go ahead and run CIF. Have Poly Valley arrange for shipping and insurance. So let's drop this down. Explain what's going on. Your container rentals. This go around, I currently have a load in transit. I mentioned before that load is in Los Angeles. There's some real slowdowns and offloading right now. It's just basically sitting, which is kind of annoying. This load cost me $6,500 to ship. So right here, I've broken things down to explain it. I mentioned before 1 year ago it was $2,500. 2.5 years ago it was 22,000. 3 years ago it was about 22,000. So definitely varies, but normally it's about 2,500 if there wasn't crazy stuff going on. Right now there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world. Shipping from port to my location from Salt Lake up to Central Idaho cost me about $2,000. What they'll do is they'll load it at the port, they'll haul it up, and they'll give you 2 hours to offload. So if you fail to offload within that 2 hour window, they'll charge you $200 an hour in additional fees. So it really behooves you to get going and moving. I've never actually hit 2 hours. I always hit about 2.5 hours. They've only charged me once, and that's when I went like 3 hours. So they're pretty liberal on that 2 hour policy. Let's break down the fees, the broker fees. So this is how the tariffs stack up in the various fees. So what you have is this 0.3464%, and that is the product value. So keep in mind, I mentioned before we had the product value is $36,000. So all the percentages are based on that product value. So this 0.3464% for this merchandise processing fee, that's on that $36,000. Harbor maintenance fee is 0.126%. China tariff fee is 25%. So that's all other countries get this tariff fee of 2.9%. What that is, that's the tariff assigned for non-steel prefab structures. The extra 25% is lumped specifically for China on top of the normal tariff. So if you were ordering from Vietnam or India, it would be 2.9%. But because we're ordering from China, you have to add 25%, becomes 27.9%. The harmonized tariff schedule is something that ICE, well, I don't know if Homeland, whatever it is, Customs Enforcement, I think, comes up with it. But this is the code I use, at least for this current load, 9406.90.0120. And what that is the HTS code for prefabbed, non-steel structures. And technically greenhouses fall into that. And I want to talk really quick upon that because I've done a little research. I believe the IRS, at least in my location, would justify calling greenhouses agricultural equipment. Okay, so if you want to work it out, great, but there's a special clause in Trump's tariffs that lower that 25% down quite a bit if it's agricultural equipment to promote, food production, horticulture, that kind of thing. So I've never done it. I've never actually used that other tariff code. You can look into it. If you do, let me know. I've just never had the confidence to pull the trigger because there's always a little bit of unknown there, and I don't want to get hit with a fine or something. But anyway, if you can make that happen, great. But right now, what we're using is this. This would apply to everything, not just agricultural equipment. It would apply to, any kind of prefabbed, non-wood and non-steel structure. When I say steel structure, I mean, you have the skin that's the corrugated metal, that kind of thing. That is not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with non-steel structures, even though there's galvanized steel in it. Okay. The bond, you need to pay, and look, work with your cargo broker. When you select a cargo broker, and I'll explain that, you need to have a bond, basically, and they'll explain what that is. It's just the normal bond. It's $450 for a year. There's a cheaper version. It's like $370 for a one-time deal. But if you go with the annual bond, then you can bring multiple containers in and not get hassled. And on this, I want to point out how this works. What this is a company's basically signing up to cover costs if you have like any hazmat or something that spills, or explosives or illegal stuff or whatever. They're going to cover it, but they're going to sue you so that you pay that fee. And I want you to keep in mind, if you're doing it now, look, I've done it in my own name, okay, as a sole proprietor. I also have an LLC, but if you're going to do it, you might think about setting it up as an LLC. I mean, it's not a big deal. There's minimal risk, but if you do it as an LLC, then you can offset that liability to your company. One important, and I made a mistake on this in years past, cost me a lot of money. When you're signing anything regarding your LLC, what you have to do is, sign your name and then make sure you put in for the name of your company, LLC. Okay, it's really important you always sign for and in behalf of the LLC. Failure to do that means you're signing your own name, you're taking the liability. That means on everything you sign relative to that company, specifically this bond. And you may remember the Evergreen Suez Canal. That's an example where, for whatever purpose, there's lots of excuses in terms of how it blocked. The timing was awfully coincident if you're a conspiracy theorist. But, when the Suez Canal was blocked by that vessel, that cargo container, the cargo company actually tried to get the mom and pops, the people that were having the containers on there, to pay for the damages done to the Suez Canal and the $1 billion or whatever problem. So they will come after you personally if something crazy happens. Just keep that in mind. Product. So keep in mind, here's the cost of the product. What I want to point out here though is look, this is the final cost here. This is the estimate, $55,270. I mentioned before, big piece of that is the $6,000 cost here. It's going to be fluctuating. You're going to have to just plan on that. Polyvalley.com, they will give you, when you email them, there'll be some communication correspondence. They will tell you up front before you book what the estimated shipping is. And in one case, look, on that $22,000 shipping in 2022, 20 to 22,000, can't remember exactly, but actually had them store it for me for a while to see if prices came down. Prices didn't go down. I had them store that load for a little while. It was very annoying. Cost me some sales. All right, so I think that captures all the miscellaneous costs. Let me explain how this process works. See, this $260 container rental fee. So it depends on who you use. Poly Valley will set it up as part of CIF. They're located in like Los Angeles. This latest one is Prime Agency. I've used them before. I've used LL Logistics before. No, maybe it was JL Logistics. They charge 150, so there's some variability. I honestly have no clue what these guys do, except that they'll send me this email saying I got to pay within like 2 days. Luckily, this company now, this Prime Agency, they're taking like Zelle. I wish they'd take, Apple Pay or Venmo or something, but Zelle, I did some Chinese company, I guess. So I had to pay via Zelle or it's wire transfer. If for me, I'm in rural Idaho. Last time I had to do a wire transfer, I had to drive 80 miles to their specific bank because I can only use their bank to do a wire transfer. What I'm getting at is they're going to notify you. You got to get on board and pay this, and it's usually going to be a few days before it arrives in port. Well, I take that back. It's a week and a half, let's say. And then let's look at something else. So regarding this concept here, as far as payment. So what like this company, this Prime Agency is going to do. So this is the contact for Prime Agency. And you don't need to go out and solicit that. They're going to set that up for you. They're going to contact you. Whoever polyvalley.com arranges for shipping, they're going to contract with this logistics, whatever it happens to be, company at the LA side, Los Angeles. Okay, so this is something that happened on this load. It's worth looking at. So here, what they said is they're still pending this OBL freight release. I've had this happen one other time. It's really annoying. So I pay all up front, to the company, the $36,000 in this case. I pay up front. They ship, and in fact, it's more than $36,000 you're going to pay up front. So you got to pay the $36,000 and the $6,000 shipping up front. So I've given all that, the $42,000 to Evan Wu in China. They shipped it. And then what happens is sometimes I've had real issues with this company, particularly this Prime Agency. They don't say that you've paid it. And last time it was the 3-day go around. I paid, got my cargo broker involved, and they said they paid. I've got the factory owner, and they said they paid. You get some new guy that doesn't know what he's doing. It's kind of a hassle. In this case, it says I didn't pay because they didn't release it. And they won't release it for us to get it shipped to us until this Prime Agency knows we've paid. So in this case, I just had, I contacted the cargo broker and I contacted, whoever else. Evan Wu finally took care of it. And they did that fast. They did that in like... honestly, in 6 hours it was done. So it wasn't a big deal. I got it taken care of, so it's no longer an issue. But keep in mind, if you do have this, it's going to go and, it has to go through the Prime Agency, not your cargo broker. So your logistics company in Los Angeles is going to own that. Another time I had a cargo container, I was notified... I think it was the logistics company notified me that they were going to, TSA was going to screen it. And it's really annoying. This is annoying. Let me explain how this worked. It cost me a week of time, okay, because they held my container for a week. I had to pay for the inspection. I don't remember what it was, $500-700, something like that. But it's an unexpected cost. Now, it's only happened once. It's really variable. I don't know why that particular container was held over. I have no idea. But anyway, just be prepared for that. You might tack on some issues. Another deal, so within this load, those half-inch panels, the 37mm panels, let me just give you some experience here. Excuse me, let's jump over here. Bam, bam. So I mentioned before you had these 37 extra panels here. So right here, okay, I'm out of half inch in my inventory, 12 millimeter panels, 12 millimeters half inch. I'm out of half inch in my inventory. So I needed those 37s for my inventory, or the 37 12 millimeters. I had a customers, they actually saw pretty good. So I had customers about a 6-hour drive from here. They were going to come down last week and pick those up. Because I expected them to be here last weekend. Then I expected them to be here this weekend. Had to tell them no. And the reason for that is, I mentioned before, everything's coming in right now. The union a lot of times will slow things down, and it's just kind of a hassle. Right now they're looking for an open train car. They're still in LA. It's waiting to get to Salt Lake. So because of these delays, it's costing me money. Because I had those panels, those half-inch panels already sold. Somebody wants them. So it is problematic. Just be aware that you're going to have these kind of delays. So my customer's not actually paid. He's just not going to come down until they're here. Especially when I'm in a very remote location. So all of Montana comes to me, Wyoming, things like that. At least the east side of Idaho, they'll come to me. So long commutes is what I'm getting at. So, you have to, for me, I need to have the inventory here to get those sales made. So another delay you got to consider. I think those are the only issues I've had so far. So it really hasn't been an issue. Let's continue on down. I showed you this image before. It's taken by a customer. I have some videos that show this particular hobby style model. But keep in mind, there's only one here, one bar on the sides, one bar in the middle. I have some videos that show center bars. I don't have that on this kit. I don't do it anymore. It's just a waste of time to do that. So just keep that in mind. You can see on the side, only one bar down the side here. That's set up so that, for grow beds, just to provide lateral support. Your verticals are on basically 42-inch centers. You can see them here where my mouse is. These are the butt joint caps here, butt joint caps here. This is your U-channel here. This is flashing on the corner. This is another upright here, etc. I think my videos will help you figure that out. This is the prime agency notification on my current product that's stuck in LA. So I just want to show you how this works, what it looks like. You can see the price is $260 here. I don't know everything they do. My first couple loads, they didn't have this. I don't know what the deal was. I did buy a shipping container once. I made a gantry, and then out of just micro lam that I had a bunch of building materials. So it's pretty easy to put together. Use some chain hoists at each corner to pull it off of the deck. Make sure if you do that, you go. I think I had to be very clever about it. Make sure I was at least like 15 feet high. So just make sure you're high enough for that. Had to make some changes like during the process where I took a Sawzall, cut things for clearance related issues because of where the chain fall was falling. So get your measurements up right before you make that. Now, I will tell you, I tried to buy more since then. For whatever reason, they don't want to move, what's called shipper-owned containers. I don't know why. But if you can figure it out, work with your logistics company, prime agency, or whatever it is, you might be able to find a good way to buy some cheaper containers. When I bought that container, that would have been maybe 2020. I paid $800. I think it was $800 for it. So it's a pretty good deal. It's a lot cheaper than what you pay locally. So now the container they brought over was absolutely thrashed. It was pretty nasty in leaks, but I still use it. Okay, so Cargo. I used to use Cargo Link International. They're a company out of Salt Lake as my cargo broker. It's just a small mom and pop. I like the service. Maybe not as professional as some of the bigger companies, but they did the job for me, and it was nice having somebody available. This is the arrival notice. I've not received, actually no, this is the arrival notice for this existing container in transit. And you can see here, it's about 15.3 metric tons. Important, keep in mind, they'll ship a lot more than 17 metric tons. The problem is the U.S. highway system. You go above 7 metric tons, you're going to end up with some problems, like 37,000 pounds, something like that. So keep your gross load at under 17 metric tons. So I've gone up to 16.5 metric tons. I wanted to push it hard. In that case, let me give you an example of what happened there. When I went 16.5 metric tons, the company backloaded a lot of the product. That happened to have been a 40-foot container. I was bringing in a lot of panels with that. So what they did is they backloaded the steel. I had to spend $1,200 on a U-Haul, a 26-footer, go down, offload a whole bunch of panels into the U-Haul, and then rearrange the load to get that. Now, it was underweight, but because so much of the steel was backloaded toward the back of the cargo container, it affected the front axle. And the front axle was overloaded, and that made it illegal to go on the highway system. It cost me, a lot of time and a lot of money by the time I was done with that. So just keep that in mind. I don't think you'll have a problem with these kits and the 20-foot container because they could readjust the 20-foot on a larger flatbed. The other thing is the 20-foot container. These greenhouses, they're mostly 19 feet, or the shorter pieces that can be stacked to make it long. I've never had any problem with a 20-foot container or with these greenhouse kits. So they've always done a good job with that. So I wouldn't worry about it. In fact, if you wanted to throw another hobby-style kit on there, you get an even 10. You do have the capacity. You have 1.5 metric tons. I can't remember the exact weight on the individual kits. At least 1,000 pounds, though. So you're well within margins to do that if that's what you wanted to do. I like throwing some extra panels in these because I like having the sales of both the kits and the raw panels. One thing, I'll explain that. Keep in mind, if you go with the half-inch panels, 12-millimeter panels, the butt joint's a little bit different. So the butt joint, either polycarbonate or aluminum, it's for 8-millimeter and down. They have tabs for that size, and then above 8-millimeter is a different size with larger tabs, up to 16 millimeters. So I don't think this order has any of the larger tabs. I just have a lot of the 12-millimeter butt joint in inventory. So anyway, you do what you want. It might be easier just to go with a smaller, like a 6-millimeter, or just go with 8-millimeter. Have it all 8-millimeter, and then you don't have to worry about different sizes, butt joints, or U-channel, or that kind of thing. U-channel and J-channel are used intermixed by the manufacturer, so be aware of that. It's the same thing. Okay, so entry summary. I have not received my load yet for this product. Okay, so I've not received this Department of Homeland Security entry summary yet that shows all the details and the money and stuff like that. This is from an earlier product load, so it's a lot lighter. This is 13.3 metric tons. My cost on this was $23,000, okay, for product. It's not these kits. This happened to be a bunch of panels I bought for inventory. So this one this is not going to look like yours. You're going to have, this number is going to be 36,000. This number here is going to be quite a bit more. So just be aware, this is what the entry summary looks like. Your cargo broker is going to send this to you. So just keep it for your records and be aware of what's going to happen. So they're going to end up billing you this sum here as what's going to happen. You're going to pay the cargo broker for that. Now, I want to be clear. After you've done, I think, 4 loads, over time, they'll give you like a credit system for payment. So you're going to be able to pay after the fact. And that's very convenient for everybody because if you go over that 2-hour offload period, then the company can jack the price up, give it to you, that kind of thing. If you end up going over 2 hours as your first load, you'll end up having to pay in advance for the delivery, but then they're going to come after you and bill you for that extra money. So what'll happen if for your first time, you'll need to pay everything up front. Not up front, but when it arrives, like let's say in my case, it's at the Port of Salt Lake. You have, they're gonna arrange shipping to my location. They're gonna have all the tariffs and stuff like that. You'll need to pay that before it's shipped. Once you've done a few of these and they know you that you're viable, then it's not a problem. So just keep that in mind. So you're gonna have to come up with another, whatever, 10,000. See, 42, yeah, it'll be, in your case, it'll be like $13,000. So after it's in Salt Lake or wherever your port is and it's ready to ship to your location, you're going to have to cough up like another 13 grand. Okay, that covers your tariffs, your broker fees, and your shipping. Now, I mentioned before shipping from like the port to your home, your business, whatever. Um, I use the cargo broker. Why? Because I like to waste money. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's a one-stop shop is what it comes down to. They're going to charge their commission. They use Utah Rail Runners out of Salt Lake for me. There's a good group of people. The cargo broker is going to tag on their extra 20%. But it's seamless. I'm paying an extra $400 for that service, 500, whatever it is. Just, fluff money. I can get a lot cheaper delivery, but it's already streamlined. They already know what they're doing. Because of that, it's not like going to some store, hooking up a trailer and moving. They're actually going to a yard, dropping this cargo container on their flatbed. They know all the magic numbers. I don't know what the heck they are. The container number and all that. If I do it myself and work with Utah Rail Runner, I know I'm going to miss one of those numbers. So it's just a convenience for me to save me time. I don't have to deal with it. Look, if you want to do it, great. But when you choose a cargo broker, it's almost easier just to have them. You buy CIF, you buy cargo insurance and freight from polyvalley.com. But on our side, the U.S. side, just have the cargo broker do all that other stuff, and the customs stuff. You have to sign your HTS, but have them do the customs and have them arrange shipping. It's just easier for me. Bill of lading. This is also for a different one. Yeah, okay. So take a look there. This is the bill of lading. This is different. So when they're loading a vessel in China, this is going to have the your mass, how much it is. In this case, this was that 16.5 metric ton load that I mentioned before. It was mainly polycarbonate. It was end of December. This is a load in 2022 that cost me like the $22,000 to deliver from China to Salt Lake. A nightmare. But this was a 20-foot container. It was mainly panels. So you got a lot more panels in there. I did have some steel, but it really wasn't much more weight than a 20-foot container. The reason for that is you have 5 commercial kits, 9 hobby kits, and a bunch of panels, and you're at 15.5, 50, whatever that is, 15.3, 15.4 metric tons. Keep in mind the container itself, it's going to weigh, I'd like to say 4,000 pounds, so a couple tons. So a couple English tons, if you did the calculations right, whatever that comes out to be, 3.5 metric. No, excuse me. I'm doing these numbers on the fly, but anyway, what it comes down to is basically 1.5 metric tons of this is your cargo container. It's not just pure cargo. This is a gross weight. So keep that in mind when you're doing your calculations. I think that's it on importing. I think you nailed it. If you want to probe around a little bit, do some work. If you want to go from like South Korea or Vietnam or Australia, try to find some other dealers that you can, or India for that matter. The U.S. has special relationships with certain countries like South Korea, for instance, minimal tariff. So if you can find a company, if you could find all the materials, it behooves you to go to another company. But the problem is everything is so easy to do in China, and I tell you, man, they'll bend over backwards for you. It's really annoying working with U.S. companies because, unless you're like Walmart, they just treat you like garbage, So this is Cargo Link International, I mentioned before, was my cargo broker that I used. I went with a small one, good company, had good relationships. They helped me out, and it was local too, so I could drive down if there was ever any issues. I never had. Now this Gebrüder Weiss company bought them up a couple months ago, and I have not actually put in a load. It was just recently. They just bought it, just a couple months ago. So I used Nicole Fenton for my right here, this email right here. So what is that? Nicole.fenton@gw-world.com. So I use her specifically. She just makes things. I have a relationship with her. I've used like 3 different individuals through Cargo Link over the years. Nicole Fenton has been with me for the longest now. So she knows the product, knows who I'm dealing with, knows me, makes things happen. This gal here, she can take care of you wherever you are in the U.S. So if you wanted to work with her, somebody that already knows the process, you could reach out to her. There's her phone number. it's your call. I have her email address. I showed it to you earlier. Let me see. So Nicole, there it is there. Let's see. So there it is, Nicole Fenton, NFE471, Nicole Fenton at gwworld-world.com. So you can see that that's her contact information. So that helps you out a little bit if you want to go that way. I think that's it. That satisfies everything I wanted to share. So if you have any more questions, just put them in the comments. But I think you're in a good spot. Step number one, contact, polyvalley.com. I'll give you the contact later. Talk to them. Just say you want this deal. I'll get you the spreadsheet. You just send that off. Give your contact information, your full name, that kind of thing. I think you even have to give your social security number for importing, or your, your EIN, your employee identification number for your LLC, whatever it happens to be. You'll have to get that to this Chinese company. Yeah, that's just life. So that's item number one. You negotiate it, pay the money. Two options to pay. One is a direct wire transfer. That's what I do. Or you go through Alibaba. The problem with Alibaba is you got to itemize every little thing. It's time consuming. It's just a hassle for everything. So I'm hoping, what I'd like to do, maybe now, if we have the volumes, with this particular load, if you just have one load, say it's the Rust Lipstick greenhouse load, that kind of thing, and on Alibaba, and then you don't have to worry about itemizing stuff. So you work it out how you want. I don't deal with Alibaba because it's just a nuisance. I just do a direct wire to Evan Wu, the company owner. I usually do that in a couple parts. When I first started doing this, I would always give a $50 wire transfer first to make sure it goes through. After that, after I know that the wire transfer works, then I'd give like 2 installments. So like an $18,000 installment and then another $18,000 installment, that kind of thing. And that way, I'm not going to lose the whole thing. I've never had a problem. At one time, they gave me the wrong information for the bank, and I lost it was $50. It wasn't a big deal. And so I resubmitted it thinking my bank, because my credit union went through a name change, I assumed they just screwed up. So I submitted the $50 again, still didn't get there. Evan told me he could see it in the account, but the problem is, this is important, polyvalley.com, it's actually Poly Valley Technology Ltd. Tianjin. Long name. And the wire transfer buckets, and I'll show this in a subsequent video, the wire transfer text field in most, the paper forms you fill out, it's that long. So there are 2 Poly Valley technology companies in China, okay? You got to get the right one. So you got to use the whole name. Evan could see it in his bank because it went to the right routing number, right bank account, that kind of thing, but he had to actually petition to get that money out of his account. So that's why it almost behooves you to even my current bank, the bank I switched to that had the bigger text field, it doesn't have the whole name, but it has enough of it to be a unique identifier. So it's just something to look at. I would suggest initially, do a $50 wire transfer. Every wire transfer you do, you have to, for an international transfer, it's an additional $35 fee you're throwing away. So keep that in mind. Once it's streamlined and you trust the system and nothing changes in terms of that name, and your bank can do it, you just plop the money down and go. It becomes very easy. It's not an issue. This load here that I'm doing, I gave him it all up front. I didn't do a test or anything because I know it works. I'm just telling you what I initially did. I think that satisfies everything. It's a pretty smooth process. One other thing I wanted to talk about. The craziness in Manhattan, Long Island. Keep in mind, these TSA guys, they're union government people, okay? They don't care about you. They think you're a rich guy that can afford these import stuff. They think that, some people hate, the fact, even though they're wearing Chinese-made Nikes, they hate the fact you're buying product from China. You know what I mean? A lot of dumb people out there. But what they're going to do is they don't care about you. Right now you have this Uyghur thing in Western China. And anything sourced from Western China that uses back in the United States, back in the day, you'd have the chain gangs, prisoners breaking rock for roads or whatever. nowadays, you can't make prisoners do anything. Just watch TV and enjoy life. So, in China, their prisoners work, and specifically the Uyghur population was targeted for imprisonment for some reason. So anything that they produce via prison labor, it's illegal in the United States now. And where that's coming to play is like the silicon, or the silicone that they've used for solar panels. They use that as an excuse, or tile. I've heard Home Depot loads got nailed for that. It's a guilty until proven innocent scenario. Now, so far, I've had no problem with galvanized steel and with the polycarbonate. That's all I'm buying. I'm buying steel, polycarbonate. I do have some aluminum. But I've heard, I think 60 Minutes did an episode on it where these guys, they had their whole load impounded. And that would be just destroy you and me. I mean, we couldn't afford it. Utterly destroy. It's a blind faith thing for me. If you can figure out a way to do it, great. I've not had any problem with polyvalley.com on this issue. I don't foresee it. You're having, lots of loads brought in, millions a year. These container loads brought in, and only a small fraction are getting targeted. Specifically, the quartz, some rubber constituents, things like that. I don't think you'll have a problem, but just keep that in mind. It's a real concern. Be prepared, for worst case, but I really don't think you'd have a problem. Anyway, that satisfies everything. I hope you got a lot out of this video. I think this was some good information for anybody, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.